Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are so excited to be sharing some time with you all today. Just a few housekeeping things as people start trickling in. This webinar is going to be recorded, and we will send this out to all of you within the next couple of days. So please share with your colleagues, watch it again. This is going to be a really, really special webinar. We have a ton of amazing information for you today, and we're going to try to get to questions at the end. So please put those into the Q&A as we go. We are going to be deep diving into a topic that a lot of you have been asking about, AI. It's truly, I feel like, been the buzzword of the year. So we're going to chat all about supercharged philanthropy and how you can transform your end of year with AI and non-cash assets. We are also joined by our amazing partners at Giveffect. And we'll go ahead and start out with a little introduction. I'll go ahead first. My name is Carly Evans. I am the Senior Nonprofit Partnerships Manager here at the Giving Block. I do come from a background working in development at nonprofits. Most recently, before I came here, I was running an annual fund. Prior to that, serving as a major gift officer. So I know how tricky and also important end of year can be to hit your goals, and I think this is really going to help a lot. I'm currently in sunny Sarasota, Florida, and also active in my community's junior league. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Lorenzo.
Thank you so much, Carly. Yeah, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Super happy to be with you all here today. My name is Lorenzo Sibilia. I'm one of the senior members of our client success team over at Giveffect. Through my duration with working with Giveffect, I've worked with hundreds of nonprofits, essentially just helping them to leverage technology to meet their goals, meet their needs. Prior to joining Giveffect in 2021, the end of 2021, almost my 2-year anniversary. Prior to that, I served as an AmeriCorps Vista Fellow in the capital region of New York State, right in Albany. I'm from gray upstate New York, to kind of dichotomize with what Carly's has going on in Florida. And again, super happy to be with your teams here today to discuss all of the exciting elements of AI and non-cash assets.
Awesome. All right, so let's go over the agenda for today's webinar. First, what we're going to do is go over AI and how it can be useful for your nonprofit. We'll talk a little bit about how AI can enhance your non-cash asset fundraising. And then we're going to talk a little bit about strategies for success for end of year. But before we dig in, I'd like to take a poll and kind of see where you all are at in terms of utilizing AI. Have you used this yet? It'll just give us a little bit more insight before we dig a little bit deeper. Okay. All right. Well, it seems it's actually about 50-50. I would say a little bit more of you have used AI than you haven't, which is great. So for those of you that have started playing around with it, hopefully you'll take a little bit more from the session to really kind of hone in and craft your strategy a little bit stronger. And then those that haven't yet, we hope you leave this prepared with a ton of different tools to be able to leverage at your nonprofit. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Awesome. So what is AI and how can it help nonprofits, right? So artificial intelligence, right, as we'll refer to it as AI, right, is ultimately the simulation of human intelligence by computers, right, by machines. Via the simulation of human intelligence, right, these computers, these machines are also able to mimic different characteristics of human intelligence, right, reasoning, learning, problem solving, perception, language understanding. And it doesn't mention it here, but the main piece of today's webinar is going to be content creation even, right? So the ability for these artificial intelligence programs to not only learn based on the data sets that they have available, but also to produce based on those data sets that are available. So AI, ultimately, there's a few different buckets, right, that comprise artificial intelligence as a item, right, ultimately as a technological item. So machine learning, right? This is ultimately going to be the most basic bucket. Just the ability for you to train algorithms on analyzation of data sets. Very straightforward, right? So just the ability, as an example, right? Let's say that I give $5 to your organization every single month of the year so far, right? AI would have the ability to predict, right, through machine learning, that I'm probably going to end up giving your organizations $10, right, for the remainder of the year, right, $5 for each of the remaining months. So machine learning is definitely the most basic component of AI. We do have some sub buckets, right, some subsets under machine learning, such as deep learning, right? This is, as it mentions, a subset of machine learning that utilizes neural networks in order to analyze large swaths of data. We're talking about absolutely massive data sets. So while computer vision is definitely one element of deep learning, the element that we're definitely going to be focusing on for the majority of today's session, right, is going to be generative AI. The ability for your AI programs and modules to actually create content, produce content based on the data and the information that these programs have access to. And you'll see down here in generative AI, this involves machines being able to create original content such as text, images, music, videos, right? Speech, as crazy as it gets, right? But just the ability for computers to mimic all of the things that we as humans create on a daily basis. So as far as machine learning goes, right, some small examples here just to kind of elaborate a little bit more on what machine learning is. Predictive analysis, as I mentioned, right? This is just the ability for your AI program or your computer program in general, right, to make predictions based on the data that is available to that program. That example that I just mentioned, right? I give your organization $5 every single month of the year so far. So through January, or from January through October 2023, I've given your organization $5 every month. Through predictive analysis, right, AI modules would be able to determine, right, based on Lorenzo's giving history, right, based on his frequency this year, again, he's probably going to end up giving us $5 in November and then $5 again in December, right, to complete that pattern. Very simple example, right, but AI is incredibly potent in the ability to make those determinations and make those predictions. Another example of machine learning, right under predictive analysis, is automatic identification. Now, of course, right, what I'm referring to here is whenever a donor makes a donation, right, through your online module, or whenever they sign up to volunteer, whenever they sign up as a peer-to-peer fundraiser, right? The ability for the program to automatically identify that contact, right, to identify that supporter. I'm not referring to username or password input, right? So, of course, those can very easily be used in order to identify folks. I'm referring instead to automatic identification using fields or values that those donors, those supporters are going to provide to you anyways, right? Being able to identify folks based on the combination of their first name, their last name, their email address, being able to identify folks based on the phone number that they provide at the time of making their gift, right? So automatic identification takes a few different forms, but the most important thing to remember here is that your supporters aren't going to be prompted to actually input a password or a username to identify themselves. Your system, the AI system that we're speaking in respect to, that would be able to make that identification automatically. As far as generative AI goes, right, moving a little bit away from machine learning, and I'm sure we've all seen, right, some of the different AI generated text, right, images, things of that nature, just, browsing the internet over the past few months. But ultimately, all generative AI refers to is the advanced nature of machine learning. So machine learning is so advanced, it so effectively analyzes absolutely massive data sets, right? And it does so efficiently that these systems are not only able to accept that data, and you're not only capable of inputting data into these systems, but these systems, are also capable of outputting data, right? So you'll notice here, we have two examples of generative AI programs, DALL-E and slightly more popular ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT, if you have experience playing with this is exclusively text generation, right? At least I've used it so far. It's been exclusively text generation. DALL-E is more so geared towards image generation, right, and things of that nature. So AI is so advanced, right? The machine learning components of AI are so advanced that these systems are able to generate images, data, general content based on the information that they have access to, which is really neat. So the power of AI for nonprofits, right? Ultimately, your nonprofit teams can leverage, generative AI programs in order to assist with content creation. Now, ultimately, right, if you have an initiative that you've been doing the same exact way and you've been promoting the same exact way for the last 15 years, right, you probably won't be as apt to use or to refer to AI programs to help you craft appeals or to craft, right, content for those initiatives. However, if you have a new appeal, a new fundraising appeal, a new marketing initiative that your team is just getting off the ground, definitely refer to AI in order to help construct some of those different some of the different content that you're going to use to promote those initiatives, right? Just as a fresh set of eyes, almost, right, and being able to simulate that human thought, that human procession of thought, right, or progression, I should say, of thought. AI can absolutely be used as a consultant, right, when generating those new pieces of content.
Yeah, so just to build a little bit more on what Lorenzo just said, let's explore the pivotal role of AI in revolutioning the non-cash assets for your nonprofit. So with AI, you're not just keeping pace, you're truly staying ahead. So you can think of it like having a crystal ball. It can help you reveal emergent trends such as a surge in crypto donations. So forecasting like this could be done with AI that's connect to browsing with the web to bring in real-time insights and information. So that could be utilizing ChatGPT 4 and searching with Bing or something like Google Bard. So this foresight enables us to connect with a broader, more diverse donor base, particularly those that are more inclined to give with these non-cash assets. So another thing that's big, obviously personalization is so key in today's digital age. And what AI does, allows us to craft donor journeys that resonate on a personal level. So by analyzing that data, we can tailor our comms to match donor preferences, making each interaction just a little bit more meaningful. And this truly deepens our relationships and fosters a sense of community and really does encourage ongoing support from the donors. Lastly, let's not forget efficiency. The intricacies of accepting non-cash assets can be super daunting, and that's where the giving block can plug in and help with that efficiency and streamlining. But AI simplifies the processes with content creation, personalization, like I was just mentioning before, and then also helps automate some stewardship and cultivation after the gift, allowing you to focus your energy more on where it truly matters, which is the mission. So it's more about doing more with less, enhancing your impact without stretching your resources thin. And that one-on-one with the donors and that white glove treatment isn't going to go away anytime soon. But AI is a viable resource to help. So you can think of that integration of AI as not just an upgrade to our existing systems. It is truly a leap forward in how we engage, understand, and value our donors and their gifts.
Wonderful, wonderful. So as far as leveraging non-cash assets, right, to pivot a little bit from AI. So non-cash assets typically, right, referring to stock, real estate, cryptocurrency, right, essentially any major asset that isn't cash that could be donated to your organization from your donors and your contributors. These ultimately represent one of the fastest emerging resources that your donors are opting to contribute to your organizations, right? I know when we think of crypto, we probably think of younger donors mainly, right? But of course, with older donors, stock, right? Potentially even donating real estate, donor advised funds. Those are all vehicles that have been around for, decades, and they're truly not going to be going anywhere, right? So considering that traditional marketing materials are probably more so geared and oriented towards promoting traditional cash gifts, maybe even in-kind gifts, right? Depending on your organization, the region in which you're operating. Generative AI platforms can fill the void, right? And assist with generating appeals, marketing initiatives, and general content meant to promote, right, the donating and contributing of non-cash assets specifically, right? So definitely a worthwhile, right, a worthwhile use case for AI right here in order not only to promote giving in general, right, which is always the goal, but to promote definitely this unique and definitely special type of contribution, right, and being able to contribute non-cash assets. So ultimately, right, how can AI enhance non-cash asset fundraising, right? Carly went through a few of those pieces a few slides ago, just generally speaking, how AI can be used to segment your folks, identify your donors, right, things of that nature. We'll walk through those steps in a little more detail. And I will note, right, just to preface, a few of the screenshots that are going to be I'll be going through in this section, they are for the most part all from my platform, right, from Giveffect. That being said, a lot of the general ideas behind these functionalities and a lot of these general functions in general, right, I would imagine that they are commonplace among many different types of nonprofit management softwares. Okay. So as far as identification of our potential donors go, right, AI has the, as we mentioned, right, has the incredible ability to analyze data sets. And these data sets can be absolutely massive, right? AI is always working. It is always efficiently working as well. So it's not just, or I should say, it will work as efficiently as you want it to, right? And it will narrow in focus on a specific topic as much as you would potentially want it to, right? Going further, right, AI also has the ability to identify potential donors and really promote these donors, bring them to your attention based on their interest in giving non-cash assets, right? How does AI even know that these folks want to give non-cash assets, right? It's through that data analyzation, right? Through that, taking all of the data, all of the information this person has on file, and just making those predictions and drawing those trends, right? So ultimately, right, by examining giving history and examining donor preferences, AI can pinpoint individuals not only likely to give, but likely to give non-cash assets. Moving on, right, this screenshot here, specifically, this is taken from Giveffect. In our module, we refer to as the lab, right? That's exactly what we call it. So within the lab, right, what this allows for is the automation of our program, right? The automation of Giveffect to identify potential donors for the upcoming month based on the giving history that they have on file. So we'll see here, right, I have about 5 contacts listed right here. And we have some general lifetime information, right? Giveffect is going to provide some lifetime information for these folks, the total amount they've donated versus the actual amount of contributions that they've given your organization, their first donation amount and date, largest donation amount and date, et cetera, et cetera. But what I really want to draw our attention to is to these final 2 columns over here, right? This expected date as well as this estimated amount. Now, granted, I put this slide together a few days ago, right, when we were still in October. So that's why these accepted dates are all in October, but all of this information updates in real time based on giving history, right? So we not only have the next anticipated date in which these folks are going to make their donation, we also have the estimated amount for that donation. This is exclusively artificial intelligence, right? This is exclusively our smart automation. I did nothing to manipulate this data, right? This is all information that Giveffect provided for me, essentially at the click of a button. So once our donors are identified, right, how would we go about segmenting these folks, right? So of course, so I'm sure I don't need to tell any of you, right? Donors have different motivations for giving, right? They have different interests and they have different giving capacities, right? A 25-year-old and a 35-year-old are going to have much different motivations, right, for giving to your organization, and they're going to have much different giving capacities as well, right? So ultimately, right, again, referring to Giveffect, but I would imagine that most softwares utilize automation and artificial intelligence in this way, right? All of that data that any donor, not just donors, but any donor, volunteer, etc., completes through your system, that's all automatically going to be associated with their record, right, with their contact record, okay? In doing that, we're able to segment our folks, and we're also able to program the segmentation to happen as soon as they complete whichever action that we're referring to. right? So looking here, right, we have some different ways in which teams may want to segment their donors, right, essentially based on demographics, interests, preferences, giving history. Of course, teams aren't limited to only segmenting their contacts these ways, but definitely the most prominent ones, at least in my experience, right? So moving on, right? We have some more screenshots from Giveffect here. And this was that piece I was referring to, right? So we are ultimately able to program any one of our interaction pages, right? So the page in which someone opts to sign up to volunteer, right? The page in which someone opts to donate, right? In this example, of course, we're looking at general donation, specifically a general cryptocurrency donation. Thank you to my partners over at the Giving Block. But as you'll see, right, what we were able to do, or what we are able to do, is we're able to program this specific checkout page to automatically tag all of the donors that give through this page, right, with this Giving Tuesday contact group, right, this Giving Tuesday 23 donors group. Of course, over here, right, through Giveffect's integration with the Giving Block, our clients are able to process cryptocurrency donations through the same exact checkout page that they can make a traditional credit card or ACH gift, or PayPal and Venmo, right? Newer integration we have right there. But moving on, right, once that donation is made, once it's processed, right, actually, let me take one step back. Once I actually take this step, scan that QR code, right, send my crypto over to your organization's wallet, specifically your Giving Block wallet, right, I will automatically be tagged with this Giving Tuesday 2023 donors group, right? I will be tagged with this contact group tagging, right? And all of that happened because I made my donation through this specific checkout page, right? Through this specific checkout. Now, if I opted to make this cryptocurrency donation through, let's say, your organization's gala checkout, right? The checkout page dedicated to your organization's gala, I would not, right? It depends how the data mapping, right? The tracking piece for that checkout is configured. However, I more than likely would not automatically be put into the Giving Tuesday contact group. I would more than likely be put into the gala donors contact group in that example, right? So having the flexibility to program your checkout pages differently so that folks are segmented accordingly based on where they make that gift, right? Ultimately, that's smart automation and our right AI, our brand of AI in action right there, right? And being able to tag those folks, segment them automatically. As far as engagement goes, right? Personalized engagement. So once your donors are identified, right? AI can definitely help to craft those personalized engagements. And when I say personalized, I don't mean, oh, right, we saw that you were interested in this specific campaign, right? Would you be interested in giving to this campaign, right? Of course, AI can definitely generate something that basic, right, for lack of a better term. But ultimately, AI can definitely be used to craft super calculated, super personalized correspondences in order for you to promote giving, non-cash asset giving, or any one of your year-end fundraising initiatives in general. Okay. And then further, right, tailored messaging. So using these AI programs to craft or to at least help craft your content will ultimately help for your messaging to be much more tailored, right? And of course, just to reiterate, we're not recommending that you reinvent the wheel, right? If you've been using the same materials for your Giving Tuesday initiative for the last 25 years, or I don't even think Giving Tuesday is that old, right? But for however long Giving Tuesday has been around, by all means, if that works for your organization, that's would be what I recommend. But definitely, if you find that you want that, that fresh perspective, right? Maybe some of your materials are getting a little stale, and you just want that new set of eyes, right? Just that new perspective. I would definitely recommend using AI as a consultant in that case. So the screenshot we have here, right? My team does do it all. We do have an in-house AI writer as well, right? So not exactly Chat GPT, but it does work incredibly similar, right? So the way our AI writer works, as opposed to Chat GPT, if you're familiar with it, right? Great. If not, the way this works in Chat GPT, when you're specifying a prompt, right? You would type out your prompt essentially like you're texting, right? Text messaging someone else, right? Like you're sending an email or texting a different person, right? The Giveffect AI writer is a little bit different in that we have these different fields available so that you could actually go and build your prompt at a step-by-step rate instead of just inputting, essentially word vomiting what you would want to see from your prompt into, right, ChatGPT. So here, right, we could see ultimately my target audience are contacts that are younger than 40 who have donated any type of non-cash asset in the past, right? We could see my tone there, informal and excited. We could play around with the language and the length, which are both really neat. And my key message here, what I'm really trying to promote are my fundraising events and initiatives that happen throughout the year, right? So, my initial rationale when generating this example, right, was that folks that have given non-cash assets, right, are more than likely to have more at their disposal in terms of being able to contribute and being able to donate, right? That being said, I really want to take advantage of that opportunity and really promote all of the different events that we have going on year round to try and rope these folks in to give us more of those non-cash assets to really fund our programming throughout the year. So that's my key message, right? And then some additional context or information. I know that's a little small right there, but what I have listed are the benefits of donating non-cash assets, right? Why donors should continue giving non-cash assets to nonprofits if they have already. And then my final little additional piece of context there is to suggest that the donor make an additional gift to support our new winter shelter, okay? The amount would be based on the gifts they have given thus far. So we could see here, right? And I'm not going to go through and read this entire piece here, but Giveffect, through our in-house AI writer, Giveffect was absolutely able to generate a sample, a nice little sample email communication that I could send out to this target audience. Now, going a step further, right? We also have an in-house email sending platform, right? It makes my job a lot easier to run these examples. So as far as this in-house email sending platform goes, right? Ultimately, I just copied, right, from this AI piece right here, just copied that exactly and threw it in our email campaign sending piece, right? And what you could see as well in terms of personalization, right? In Giveffect, we have what's called replacement variables, right? These replacement variables, every email sending platform is a little bit different, but we refer to those platforms may refer to those as merge fields, right? Accordingly. These merge fields are really nice because, again, looking at AI and that smart automation component, they will completely personalized, right? These merge fields are completely responsible for personalizing the email based on the contact receiving it, right? So all that being said, this nice little AI generated email we have right here, right? We can send this to all of the contacts in our database, right? In our CRM. Let's just say for this example, we have 5,000 contacts in there, right? We could send this communication to all 5,000 contacts, and via use of these merge fields, the email is going to be completely personalized depending on which contact is receiving said email to their inbox, right? So you'll see here that we have dear contact first name, right? So every contact that receives this, their first name is going to automatically be included in there. And that's the system completely doing it on its own, right? That smart automation component in effect. And then you'll also notice here that I have highlighted, we suggest a contribution of, and you'll see I have that merge field right there, right, based on your giving history. What this merge field says, right, is the greater of the average donation amount or $50. So when I receive this email, it's going to say, Dear Lorenzo, all of this other nice information that we have in here. And then it's going to say, we suggest a contribution of, and then what Giveffect will do is it will look at my giving history. It's going to tally up all of my donations, and depending on whether $50 or my average donation amount is greater, Giveffect will automatically include the greater of those two values in this final product, right, in this email that's received to the contact. So close out this specific example, right? We have this email that I went ahead and sent to myself. Dear Lorenzo, right? It adequately used my contact information, my contact name. we suggest a contribution of $2,620. I get crazy with my examples. I wish I could contribute that much to our nonprofit, but ultimately, right, that's going to be my average donation amount for my demo contact record, right, for the contact record that I used for this example. All right, so that those smart automation, those artificial intelligence components are absolutely in effect every step of the way. Not only could you use AI to generate your initial correspondence, right? AI is also going to be used in the context of Giveffect or in the context of Constant Contact, MailChimp, right? If you're using those merge fields are automatically going to take that contact data into account. When I'm, demoing this, replacement variables, merge fields, whatever you want to call them to my clients, I always say, the days of sending those super generic, emails are over, right? Where you have to say, hi, value donor, thank you so much for donating to our team in 2023. As you can see right here, right, we do not have to sacrifice personalization for the ability just to send mass emails to more than one contact at a time. So really great stuff here. And to close out on this little example, this walkthrough example, donor retention and stewardship, right? So once we receive that donation, once we receive that non-cash asset, right, AI can absolutely continue to play a crucial role in donor stewardship. So ultimately, right, follow-ups can be automated completely. So based on the actions completed by your donor, even after they make their gift, right, you could completely automate a drip series, right? A drip series communication, which is incredibly useful because we've been bouncing back and forth through this whole webinar. That saves your team the time. No longer do you actually have to push out those emails depending on who received them, who didn't open them. Instead, you could let these systems take care of it completely on your behalf, and you could spend that manual time, addressing important stewardship items, addressing gift solicitation, right? Addressing your major donors, those types of items. All right, so to close out our little walkthrough, you'll see here, again, completely in-house for Giveffect, we have the ability to create these drip series communications via our workflow automation tool. So you'll see here to the left, right, this is what we refer to as our trigger. And this is how I program when I want this workflow, this drip series to be fired off, right? So we'll see that I want this to be fired off whenever a donation is made, but I further filter it so that this specific drip series is only going to be triggered whenever a donation is made by someone in the Giving Tuesday 2023 donors group, and when someone in this group makes a cryptocurrency donation, specifically an online cryptocurrency donation through our Giving Block integration, right? So using the example that I started off with, right? I'm a donor in this group that has given a cryptocurrency donation. To the right here in this screenshot, that is the drip series that I'm going to be followed up with, right? That Giveffect in this case, right, is automatically going to follow up. So I make my donation, right? I'm going to receive that initial email. If I open that initial email, great. Giveffect is automatically going to create a note in the system for my contact record, okay? And we're able to predetermine what that note contains, the content of that note. If I don't open the email, and you're able to set a time threshold here, right? You're able to set a delay. If I don't open the email, I'm going to be followed up with another email. Hey, Lorenzo, we sent you an email a few days ago. We just want to, right, check back in, ensure that everything's okay, right? Now, if I go ahead, open this email, same deal, a note will be created for my contact record. If I don't open this email, I have it programmed that a task will automatically be created and assigned to one of our admins to follow up with me, right? To gauge, oh, hey, we noticed you donated a few months ago, a few weeks ago, right? We just want to ensure if there's anything else we could do, if there's anything you need assistance with, things like that, right? So really just closing out that drip series, closing out that communication with that personal touch. Lorenzo hasn't opened our 2 previous emails. Maybe it's time to give him a call, that type of deal. Okay. So strategies for year end, or for success, during end of year fundraising. So as far as some general AI strategies for nonprofits go, right, and these are, really exclusively referring to, or excuse me, not exclusively referring to AI, but both some strategies you could keep in mind as far as AI usage and promotion of non-cash assets go. Invest in AI tools, right? Consider adopting AI-powered donor management or fundraising platforms to specifically handle non-cash assets. But as we saw right through our webinar, you guys can, feasibly use AI for anything, right? For any type of content generation or for any type of strategy, right? Strategy consultation, right? Those types of items. So investing in AI tools and definitely taking the time to learn and to play around and to run examples in these AI tools, that's going to be key, right? That initial exposure is always key. On that same line, right? Educating your team, ensuring that your team is well versed not only in AI but also in non-cash asset fundraising. There are a lot of tax benefits with non-cash asset fundraising. Carly, you could definitely speak on those better than I can. But it's super important information to keep in mind that your donors have the right to be in the loop about, right? So not only in the realm of AI, but also non-cash asset fundraising, it's important to keep your team educated. And then in the realm of AI, right, knowing maybe when is it better to use AI, when is it better to refer to AI as a consultation device, and when is it better just to refer on our personal touch, right, as a team, right? And of course, the situation, depending on the situation, will absolutely determine which of those routes you opt to go. Transparency matters, right? Of course, through every step of the donation process, the donor has the right to understand how their contribution is being used, and also, again, the tax benefits corresponding with that contribution, whether it be crypto, stocks, real estate, right? Anything of that nature. Folks absolutely do have the right to know not only how their money is being spent, but also just how, right, just the ins and outs of this process, right? Not as simple as me just giving a $5 bill to your organization anymore. I mean, it absolutely could be, but in this instance, definitely not. So transparency absolutely matters. In continuous learning, right? Not even just AI, not even, right, sequestered to non-cash assets. Nonprofit technologies are always evolving, right? It's a constant growing field, constantly growing field, I should say. So it's important to stay informed about the latest trends, right? As mentioned, right? I'm a Giveffect employee, I'm a Giveffect expert, but a lot of the specific AI, components, some of those pieces to keep in mind that I refer to, those are going to be the case regardless of the AI program that you're utilizing, or regardless of the merge field system that you're utilizing, right, when sending emails. So always important to try your best to stay ahead of the curve. Again, I know with nonprofit technologies, things are evolving super quickly, but always important to, right, just stay an active learner, right?
Awesome. That was so good, Lorenzo.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit now for strategies for end of year success. So on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about best practices of how to get started. So we'll touch on the basics of prompting and give you examples of how you can leverage generative AI for end of year solicitations and your social posts. But truly, I just want to encourage you all to just play around with things. And you can even ask AI to make it better and work for you. And really, that's the whole point. So you'll need some time to try it out. And it's kind of like riding a bike. Once you get it, you get it. So I think that you all, soon enough that you haven't started playing with this yet, you'll be pros a lot quicker than you think. And then, of course, tracking the data is also important. I'm sure some of you do quite a bit of A/B testing with your outreach. I think that's a really good idea to kind of throw some new things out there and see what sticks with your donor base. And then you can always feed that data back into AI and see what will work better for next time. So let's talk about how to use it.
Right. So when it comes to utilizing generative AI for your communications, right, there's a few different options, a few different routes you could take when actually engaging with the AI. In this specific example, moving away from Giveffect, we'll be focusing on ChatGPT a little bit. So the two main routes you could go, right? You could go the info gathering route, right? Or you could go the I'm going to put you in my shoes route, for lack of a better term, right? So info gathering, right? Very traditionally, it's very similar to using Google for info gathering, except if Google talked back to you, right? If Google actually provided you directly with that output. So best example, right? Again, maybe I'm a member of a nonprofit development team. We have a brand new initiative. Let's just stick with that winter shelter, right? Our winter shelter is opening up in the end of the year. I'm in upstate New York. It gets frigid here towards the end of the year, right? So we really want to ensure that we have the best content available in order to promote giving towards this winter shelter. Info gathering, right, is one element that we could use ChatGPT for here. So we could say, I'm interested in building a, right, or interested in promoting giving to my winter shelter, right, based on the information you have available. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily have to say that, but based on the information you have available, what components should I include here? Are there any specific pieces that I shouldn't include that would turn donors off to giving towards this type of initiative? Just that general info gathering piece, right? As far as the detailed ChatGPT prompt, right? Essentially putting the machine in your shoes, right? So essentially formatting the prompt so that you are a nonprofit development, right? A development director working to promote giving to your brand new winter shelter, right? You're a nonprofit located in Oswego, New York, is an example. It would probably need a winter shelter more than I would in Utica, but ultimately, right, just putting the machine in your shoes, right, and getting it to write your prompt from that perspective. So those are really the two different avenues, right? Just general info gathering, right, poking the machine with a stick, seeing what it spits back out to you, and then actually putting the machine in your shoes.
So we're going to start with info gathering and then kind of distill it down to a little bit more detail. And truly, if let's talk about ChatGPT for a second. I mean, they're all pretty similar. It's going to get better and better the more information that you feed it. So I'll just kind of go through these steps that I like to think about when creating some prompts. So you need to start clearly. For example, like Lorenzo was saying, you're a director of development. So say you are a director of development at a food bank in Tampa or that winter shelter, you name it, and you need to finalize your plan for Giving Tuesday. I will tell you all that I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT 4. It's the paid version. It's $20 a month. It's life-changing, honestly, not just at work, but outside. So that's why you got to play around with it to ask it to help you learn. But anyways, I would write into the prompt box, for example, I need help finalizing my plan for Giving Tuesday at ABC Winter Shelter. We are looking to raise, say your goal is $25,000. Our mission is X and we can do Y with those contributions. So I would like for you to write 2 blurbs for my newsletter, 2 social posts for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Say you want to do a YouTube short because you guys are starting to do some videos. Create a script for YouTube short and then a strategy plan for timeline on posting. So it's going to populate some ideas. So then you can ask it, are there any additional questions you need from me to learn more about my donor base and the work that we do to help in building this plan? So then you can go back, maybe go back and forth a little bit. And then say you want this to be coming from like your CEO, the voice of your CEO. So what you could do is say, please write this in the voice of our CEO, and then you can just copy and paste some examples of maybe a blog that your CEO wrote or an interview or something like that, and then feed it into the ChatGPT and let it learn their tone of voice. And then what it's going to do is populate back, typically in like paragraph form. Sometimes it add in some fun emojis, which is great. But say, for example, when it populates all that information, it comes back with the timeline of when you should post for Giving Tuesday and all that good stuff. And you want it in table format because it's easier to read and share with your team. And you want to copy and paste that and put it in your Google Docs. You can just ask it, say, can you please provide this in table form? So it's easy. So it's easier for you to keep track of those dates. So whatever you want, you can ask. And You can also challenge it as well. Sometimes it might be a bit off. So the more information that you feed it, the better that it can do. You also want to double check the work, and remember your first draft is not always your final draft. This typically takes many iterations. And then once I get something that I like, I always like to add my own personal flair. And one last tip, I always like to use please and thank you. I think this typically produces a better response, but it's also just kind of ingrained in my everyday linguistics. But I hope AI appreciates it just as much as humans do when I am being polite. And then in the next upcoming slides, Lorenzo is going to show you some more samples of just getting a little bit more granular on how to optimize the best practices I just laid out.
Yeah, absolutely. So just, decoding some of these best practices, taking some of what Carly said and bringing it, a step further. As far as what are the best ways to use, not only ChatGPT, but AI in general. And I know it sounds weird, right? Because essentially you're just typing your prompt into the machine, right? And it's spitting back information to you. But there is a method to the madness, right? A best way in which you should communicate with the machine to get your desired output, right? Because of course, there's definitely output that you would prefer to receive over different types, right? So the first item here, start clearly, right? Define your end goal up front, whether it be craft me a solicitation email. We are generating the winter shelter, to stick with that, right? We have a new winter shelter. Would you be able to generate a fundraising campaign description, right, to promote this new winter shelter? So speak clearly to the machine, right? Tell it exactly what you want, and definitely mitigate some of the transparent items within your direction, right, to the AI. Setting a persona, right? As we mentioned, to that, on my last slide that I covered, just being able to put the AI in your shoes. So write this winter shelter email from the perspective of a CEO from a Minnesota nonprofit, as an example, right? Items like that. Of course, not just every nonprofit, but every region in which your nonprofit operates, right? They're going to have completely different needs, and their marketing content is going to want to promote different items, right, and highlight different items completely depending on your geographic location within not just the United States but beyond, right, in different countries. So setting that persona could definitely be a great way to tell the AI, yep, you need to write this from the perspective of a nonprofit strategist from upstate New York, as an example. Keeping the model concise, right? Ensuring brevity and directness. So as we reviewed the Giveffect AI writer, right? My in-house AI component, you notice that we had that length piece, right? So you're able to, at least within Giveffect, right, directly determine the length of your content, right? The content that the machine is generating. You are absolutely able to tell ChatGPT or any one of these other AI programs that you want your content to be X paragraphs long, and you don't want paragraphs to be longer than 4 sentences, as an example, right? So you are absolutely able to communicate those types of preferences to ChatGPT or whatever other AI, right? It's just important that you will need to actually lay it out, right? You actually need to tell the AI how long, or at least an idea of how long you would want the communication to be. Right? So we have a sample prompt right down here, right? So please craft a solicitation email for Giving Tuesday, right? Clear objective right there. Imagine that you're a communications director addressing loyal donors. There's our persona. And then keeping the email under 200 words, ensure that it's concise and compelling, right? And there's our conciseness piece, I should say. As far as some other best practices go, right? Guiding the model with prior examples, right? So that one example I mentioned a few minutes ago, right, where we have our Giving Tuesday initiative. We've been promoting Giving Tuesday for the past 5 or 6 years, but maybe our marketing initiatives are starting to get a little stale, right? Maybe our Giving Tuesday output last year wasn't necessarily as great as we'd wanted to be. Maybe it's a marketing thing, maybe it's something else, right? But the first step is just upping our materials, right? Upping the game of our materials. What you could absolutely do, right, if you're using AI to help inform your new content, is to provide it with those previous examples, right? Saying, hey, we've been promoting Giving Tuesday for the past 5 years. Here's an example of one of our previous marketing initiatives, one of our previous email campaigns that we sent out to promote this. Is there, right? Just go ahead and give it some revisions, right? Make it fresh, make it updated, essentially, right? Updated to be relevant to today. So showing these models previous examples definitely could be useful in assisting with just guiding it to get the results that you want, right? And you would most prefer. Defining the format, right? Whether you want to include bullet points, whether you want to include a numeric list, right? Anything like that, being as clear as possible and providing those clear formatting instructions are also important, right? So of course, it may look great, the content might be great, but the AI might give it to you as one block paragraph. I'm not saying it will do that, but if it does ever do that, right, just defining your formatting preferences are going to be key there. Request reason, right? So once we do get that initial response from ChatGPT or whatever AI we're opting to use, asking it, why did you, why did you suggest this, right? Is there any specific reason why you suggested that I include orange leaves in my winter shelter graphic, right? Because that wouldn't make sense necessarily, right? So being able to request reasoning, it is more so than Google, right? When I mentioned it earlier, but it is a more so conversational consultation piece, right? So it's being able to go back and forth with this machine, not just giving it a prompt and then getting an answer spit back right back to you. It's being able to go back and forth and being able to fine tune the content that you're getting, provided with. So a little pro tip down here, right? To make ChatGPT sound more like you, repurpose previous solicitation emails or talking points by simply copying and pasting them, right? This helps preserve your voice. And of course, right, the machine learning elements within our generative AI programs are so powerful, so advanced, right, that they would be able to mimic you, right? So great stuff there. Oh, my mistake. And then to close out our best practices, right? Assuring accuracy and fit, right? Ultimately, going even before that, double checking the work of the AI. This is huge. Whenever I discuss AI with any one of my clients, and as Carly mentioned, right, our first draft is never going to be our final draft, right? You want to ensure that the AI is being right is spot on as it should be, right? In the end of the day, it is still a machine, right? That is important to consider. And leveraging your knowledge, right, it will also help it to ensure accuracy, right? So being able to provide it with those examples, being able to converse with it, go back and forth and say that, oh, the first iteration of that content that you provided me wasn't what I was looking for. Would you be able to rewrite that with 50 less words, as an example, right? So double checking is always key. And of course, just to not speak anecdotally, because thankfully I've never run into this, but ultimately certain folks, and I'm not saying everyone, but they give to your organization, right, to feel good and to feel that, warm, fuzzy feeling of helping a good cause, right? In being, receiving that acknowledgement for their gift, right? If someone, especially in the sense of a printed letter mail correspondence, right? If someone catches on that you may have used AI to generate that and then you just sent it out as, as is, just based off that generation, that could potentially harm your relationship with that donor. And now I'm not referring to just relying on AI and using it as a consultation device. I'm just referring to plagiarism here, right? Just taking that AI, whatever it gives you, and then just sending that out as your final product. I would never advise to do that, right? So definitely always want to overlook everything that the AI produces. And also you just want to give it that human touch, right? Challenging the model, right? Being able to go back and forth, conversing with the model, right? Not settling for the initial response, saying, "Oh, your first iteration was perfect, but it needs less emojis," right? Being able to say things like that will absolutely help. And engaging in that dialogue, right? Being able to just go back and forth with AI. Remember, Google, you put your answer in the Google search bar, you're going to get a ton of links that, the first page will be relevant, the rest of them probably won't be. These AI programs are really nice because they're supposed to be conversational to a degree, right? So absolutely engage these programs in dialogue, and the more you engage with it, the more it's learning about you. And the more it learns about you, like Carly mentioned, right, the better it'll be able to not only mimic your voice, but mimic, some of those different preferences that you would like to see generate out of the program.
All right, so let's craft a Giving Tuesday social strategy. The objective here was to design an impactful social media post to boost donations for our upcoming Giving Tuesday campaigns. So we went ahead and put a detailed ChatGPT prompt into the system and said, please craft social media posts for Facebook and Twitter to promote a typical child hunger organization's cryptocurrency fundraising campaign for end of year season 2023. Emphasize the organization's ambitious goal of raising $100,000 to ensure every child in America has access to the food they need. Each post would contain a strong and persuasive call to action, urging followers to donate. Tailor this campaign to the millennial generation and provide 3 different campaign suggestions and names. So we went ahead and submitted this. So I went ahead and used ChatGPT 4 for this because that's kind of my default. And then it came up with 3 different ideas. And then I'll show you my favorite one on the next slide. And this is what it came up with. So it came up with 3 different ideas. I like this one the best. And then again, this is just like its first shot. So this is where you can go back and forth and sort of like distill down and like give it your spin or whatnot. But so this is where you would utilize more of that prompt engineering and those best practices that Lorenzo just outlined. So this truly embodies the more the merrier, the more information that you feed the generative AI, the better outcomes that you'll receive. So even though this was made in ChatGPT 4, you can still use ChatGPT 3.5 for free. That's the standard model that everyone should get signed up with that today and start playing around with it and try some things for end of year, just since it's fresh after this webinar. But so this is ChatGPT, and now Lorenzo is going to show you an example of how their AI writer would do this and how it would look using Giveffect.
Yeah, absolutely. So very, again, our in-house AI writer is very similar to ChatGPT. The main difference is prompt construction, right? How you would actually go about providing your prompt into the system. So as you could see, right, we have similar, somewhat similar prompt right here, right? Donors of all ages, a formal tone in promoting our donors to give non-cash assets during the holiday season. And ultimately, right, Giveffect was able to provide us with this subject. And then we have, of course, our general body for our communication. The one thing I do want to note is that, just a major, not major, but a decent difference between the in-house Giveffect AI writer and ChatGPT. My company's AI writer is going to be less conversational than ChatGPT's, right? Of course, with ChatGPT, it's essentially built like a text messaging app, right? You go back and forth with the machine. With Giveffect's in-house AI writer, I personally believe that the way we have our prompt construction piece set up, it actually makes it a little easier to construct a prompt as opposed to ChatGPT. I know I'm biased, but just in my opinion, right? And then, of course, right, just some additional items to keep in mind, right, regarding different ways you could utilize utilize generative AI for your different nonprofits use cases. So, of course, today's webinar was mainly focused on not just using AI to promote giving, but really to promote non-cash asset giving, right? Ultimately, the sky's the limit when it comes to AI and generative AI, right? You could realistically use generative AI to generate, content for any one of these items and even going beyond. What we have listed here, though, grant proposals, thank you notes, right? End of year appeal letters or emails. I know that was the major focus of today's session, or today's webinar, I should say. Educational content, volunteer engagement, event planning, strategic planning, right? Your teams are able to use generative AI for all of these. And even going a step further, your team is able to use machine learning AI to essentially increase the effectiveness, right, of how you guys spend your time, right? How your team spends your time, being able to spend more manual time doing those items that matter, stewardship, solicitation, major gifts secured, right? Securing major gifts, as opposed to just generating content, just pushing out emails, things like that.
Yeah, I can go over a couple of these takeaways with you all. I know we have like less than a minute to spare, but as you all take a look at this, I do want to say that at the Giving Block, we do have a free offer going on till the end of the month if you are a qualified nonprofit. So I'll go ahead and launch a poll here. I know we do have a hard stop here, unfortunately, at 3. For those of you that did ask questions, we will get back to you via email with our follow-up, but we look forward to sharing with all of you the recording. And if you have any questions for Lorenzo and I, send them to us or just ask with the email, book a meeting. We'd love to talk more. I think this was an incredible session, and hopefully you all left with a ton of insight and learnings. And we'll send the takeaways as well as the whole presentation included, so you can look through that and share that with your colleagues and friends and whoever else you know in the nonprofit space. But thank you all so much. Thank you, Lorenzo. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you, Carly. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure being here. And I look forward to getting in touch about some of these questions. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.